Thank you for joining us for Inside Real Estate. It is the first week of February, and this is when the serious sellers are planning and not listing. Yeah, you heard it right. The serious sellers are planning and not listing. If you want to know why we say that, stick with us through this video. I'm Terrence with Boykin Realty, covering the triangle.
And I'm Zeke with Zane Real Estate Advisors, powered by Compass, covering the Charlotte metro area.
And I am Donald Smith with Broker Smith at North Group Realty, and we have the coastline.
Awesome. Now, if you're a seller thinking about selling in the next 60 to 120 days, this is the planning window that could really make or break your results. And when it comes to planning, the first thing you want to know is what's going on in the market. So Zeke, what are you seeing out west right now that that your sellers may want to know?
They are coming out of the holidays, are seeing where their neighbors have pulled their homes off the market. They withdrew their homes during the holidays, trying to pinpoint or plan exactly when they should go to market now, because so many people hear, oh, well, let's go to market in the spring, February or March or what have you. So they're kind of really watching what their neighbors are doing, and kind of going from there. And most of all, hopefully listening to their agents.
Got it. What I've looked at some numbers here for the triangle. The biggest thing I see that sellers need to know is year over year, our days on market are up 25%. This time last year, days on market were, I think, about 35 days. Now we're about 42 days on market. So we really need to look at that and price strategically right now. So that's the biggest thing we're seeing. What about you guys on the coast?
It's the same story that everybody else has, but I'll say this with our folks, most of our sellers are the ones that are entertaining right now are ones that were in houses 4 or 5 years ago, and they're looking at being able to shift out of it. And so the first piece of advice I tell them always is you need to speak with the lender. Let's see what you are able to qualify for and what that's going to look like in a monthly payment. And then let's make the decision if this is something that we want to move forward on. And if it is, then obviously we need to start watching the market, see where our buyers are at, and start looking at the houses that are sold. I tell them all the time, I said, let's go on some field trips. Let's go and look at some houses, and let's just kind of walk through some that are comparable to yours and just kind of see what we're going to be competing with. So the first month, we spend a lot of time doing homework and research before we actually get into getting the house ready for market. And so typically, if you are 3 months out, we'll tell you that we need to meet immediately because we're going to have about a 90-day prep period to get your house to the market. And the reason we say that is we'd rather spend time on the front end instead of spending time on the market on days wasted.
Yep. And Don, the thing you led with is one that a lot of sellers never hear till a lot of times it's too late because the realtor isn't thinking about it. And it's one of the first things I ask, where are you going to live next? And the next question is, have you spoken with that lender? Because that's that thing that we have to make it all work. How are we going to have to plan for this? Are we going to have to close the same day? Can you buy first, sell second? That opens up a lot that most sellers don't think about because they got so many other things going on. So, yeah,
Great points.
that's big.
All great points.
Speaking of getting that house sold and on the market, we talked about the, planning and all that. What do you guys see from your experience that as sellers are thinking about putting their house on the market right now, what really moves the needle? So what gets people in for showings, and then what gets people to offer that top amount? What have you guys seen?
Well, I tell you what I try to do with my clients, and that is to have them just start decluttering, right? Because that seems to take the longest period of time. And when it comes to having buyers come into the home, the last thing they want to see is a bunch of clutter, right? Because they can't see the home. So we want to, I try to tell them, let's leave enough furniture in there just so that the buyers can get a good idea of what their living situation would be, how much furniture they already have to what the space is. So we want to be able to give them an idea of how much space they'll have versus walking in and barely being able to see the house because of all the distractions from all the clutter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I walked one yesterday, helping her sell her house, and we talked about decluttering. We talked about some of those minor cosmetic repairs that need to be made.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
even once they declutter, you have to walk that house again because they're
Yeah.
uncovering some stuff that you hadn't seen. So for you sellers out there,
Right.
we may come in that first visit and give you a list of things to do. The next time we come back, there may be a few more.
Right. Right. So it's real key to for all of you out there to listen to your agent. So make sure from day one you have one that you feel like you can really trust, because it's a partnership. It's a real relationship, to handle your biggest investment, pretty much most of our biggest investment. So to have a trusted real estate advisor that you are willing to listen to, because as Terrence said, we're going to uncover some things in decluttering. If we say, okay, we need to paint this room, right? Or we need to update this or that. Um, to get us the best outcome, we really need you to kind of listen to us. That's what you hired us for, right?
That's it, right? I think the first one you're spot on. We tell our folks 50%. You need to cut the things in your house by 50%. Right out of the gate before we even start talking about anything else, just go ahead and know that we're cutting 50% of the stuff. It's a great opportunity for you to go ahead and start packing the things that you're not using, to go ahead and start getting organized and doing it now before you get under contract and you're under a mad rush and things are just getting thrown into trash bags. So that reduction and decluttering allows them to not only get their house ready, but they're also getting ahead of the game and being organized so that they're ready to move into their new house when they get there. I think for us, we hold to this idea of 7 minutes. You have 7 minutes, and we tell them that you've got 7 minutes to make a first impression. That first impression begins the moment that they turn into the neighborhood. Now, we don't get to control what the neighbors do or some of the things in the neighborhood. What we do control is the moment that they turn into the driveway. And so when we want to start focusing on making sure that we're getting the best out of every showing, that first 7 minutes is important because the moment that they step into that front door, they've pretty much already formalized in their head whether or not this house is going to possibly meet their needs or not. And they've either marked it off of their list or they have said check mark and we're moving forward and we like it. The catch is if they've already marked it off their list, it doesn't matter what else has happened past that threshold. So for us, we say we want to make sure that we keep the house on the front first 7 minutes. That first impression needs to make sure that is the most focus that we spend on the property, on everything. The other thing we'll tell them is we got to price this the right way, right? We call it market neutral. We much rather leave the house sitting market neutral and let it
Mhm.
sit middle of that range and then allow the market to drive it up. And we tell them that I think that's the best way to make sure that we're getting enough showings. It's also the best way to possibly get ourselves to where we have multiple offers so that we set it there and maybe we'll go over top of that number. Or maybe the market's going to drive it down. But in any case, we're going to sit it in the middle and we're going to let the market dictate what the house brings.
Yep, yep, and that's a
Yeah.
that's a big one. I wanna go back to one thing you said, Donald. When we started talking about preparing that house, we instantly talked about decluttering and repairs inside the house. What you just mentioned about that drive to the house is so important. At
Hmm.
that listing appointment I was at yesterday, one of the first things I noticed was one of her kids had run into the edge of the house, and you could see where they had run into it. So that's got to be repaired. Also, her front yard. We talked. I said we need to bring in at least the tiniest little new layer of fresh mulch so we can
Hmm.
create that depth that they see from the street. That green. By the time this goes live, the grass will be green again. Now we got that mulch. Told her to get the brush trimmed so it looks nice and neat because that's the first thing they see, the last thing they see. Her backyard is a big selling point of this house. So we talked about laying pine straw in the backyard and really how we're going to show that yard. So just I want to say, everybody, don't forget about that backyard. And the other thing you said, Donald, that decluttering. Earlier, you said, you want to start with these clients a good 3 months beforehand, not only to reach out to that lender, but that's the great time to start that decluttering because it can take a while.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Big time. Especially coming out of the time of the year that we just came out of, because we've kind of gotten lazy. We've had family to entertain. We're tired. We're starting to go back to work. This little thing we call life starts to take shape all over again. And then now I've got to declutter.
Yeah. Yep.
So putting aside that time, planning that time, like Donald said, it's very important.
What are some of those renovations that you guys have seen that don't pay off as much as your sellers thought they would have?
Wow. Well, I have looked at sellers that have put in extra bathrooms, especially like for a home with a basement, right? And so they've gone through what I have told them, you have made this house so that it's functional for you. And yes, it costs you a pretty amount or what have you. Don't expect to get all of that back because the next buyer may not need the functionality that you have spent, your money on or what have you. So let's focus on, did you get benefit from it? Was it functional for what you needed it to be? And I try to take the focus off of the fact that you spent $25,000, but you're probably only going to see about 10,000 value. And that's just using numbers, but you're probably only going to see about 10,000 in value from it. But that other 15 or so, that's when it made it functional and living and it made it your home. So, but I see it more so, especially when it comes to finished basements.
So I get that you're saying when you're looking at doing repairs for a listing, do it to get the house sold, not what you want in the house as that current seller.
Yes,
Got it.
that's it.
Got it.
That's
Got it.
it.
Got it. I
Yeah.
see things like carpet. A lot of times I walk into a house and the carpet's not bad. It needs to be cleaned and stretched. And oftentimes people will replace that carpet not knowing what that new buyer wants. So that new buyer may come in and pull all that carpet out. So that's a lot like what you're saying. Don't go overboard on some of those
Hmm.
things.
Hmm.
Another one I had is it's either or right now. It's kind of tough right now is HVAC and roof because those, as an appraiser looks at it, those are normal wear and tear. So your roof may not be at its, it may not have lived its life, but someone wants to replace that roof. You may not get that money back as far as the listing goes. It may not raise the value of that house any or as much as you think. Same for HVAC. It's kind of tough. Now, a lot of those are individual scenarios, but replacing a large item like that, you may not get that money back.
Yeah, that's right, because a lot of times what we'll tell people with maintenance items, so when we start talking maintenance items, we're talking roofs, talking HVAC systems, hot water heaters. All of those things are not going to raise your appraisal, and it's not going to raise the market value of the property. However, it is going to protect the negotiations when we get to repairs. And so, what we will tell our folks about maintenance items is that we need to make sure that we budgeted for them, but we're not going to repair them while we're actively listing the house. If that's something that the buyer is wanting, we'll negotiate that repair on a maintenance item while we're in that due diligence period, because that's not going to get your price point up. It's not going to change the appraisals numbers on it. It literally has nothing to do with the price pointing of it. It has everything to do whether or not you're going to be able to get through that due diligence period, making sure things function. So we'll hold all of the maintenance things as much as possible until we get under that due diligence. And of course, our clients are going to mark what they mark on the RPODs or on the property disclosures, and then we'll just negotiate it back and forth from there. When we look at things that are going to bring value to the house, we'll look at it the same way the appraiser does it. And so we're looking at really two categories, the quality and we're looking at the condition. What's the quality of the things that are in the house? And we start talking quality, we're really looking at basically a couple things. We're looking at the types of floors.
Mhm.
Is it carpet? Is it laminate? Is it LVP? Or is it hardwoods? Anything over carpet and laminate, we're going to uptick that in quality. So we're going to get a raise on the value of the house there. We'll look at kitchens. Does the kitchens have a solid countertop? Or is it something that's been laminated over top of it? That'll change it. Cabinets, bathrooms. Those things are all played into giving that a higher quality when it comes to the appraisal, which means that the higher quality is also going to follow in the pricing of the house. Now, granted, appraisals and market value aren't the same thing, but they do kind of walk hand in hand together. And so that's the best way we have to be able to price a property is by looking at what the appraiser does. So we will look at bathrooms, kitchens, cabinetries, countertops, flooring. That's pretty much what's going to get you into a higher price point. And then we're going to look at things like the condition of the house. Are there holes in the walls? Does things look clean? Does it look like everything has been taken care of? Again, you're going to get upticks for that. The two things that you're not going to get upticks for, like you think, are our outbuildings. They're not really played into the appraisal. They're not really, you're never going to get dollar for dollar back. You might get 10 to 15 because they're going to price them and appraise them just like they're adding on a garage to the house for the most part. So you're getting a small piece of that money. And then the other one that you really are not going to get any kind of real return, and this is the one that everybody wants to fight about, is the lot that they're on in the neighborhood. We've got the biggest lot. You might have the biggest lot. However, that's not the way it's going to the market on the resale. Each of those lots are pretty much equal. Doesn't matter if you're on the corner or you're on the cul-de-sac. Doesn't matter if you're a half acre or 3/4 acre. They're pretty much equal inside of the neighborhood.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
And those outbuildings are a thing as well because some of them are considered personal property. They're not on a foundation. They're just sitting there on blocks.
That's right.
And a lot of people think it's going to price in. One of the things that I heard, preparation is about removing objections, not building your dream home.
That's right.
I think that's a
Mhm.
great way to look at it. We touched on it a little bit. What are you guys seeing? I know every house is not the same, but what are you seeing for that prep window on average for getting, say, a single family house ready?
Gosh, I'd say really it can really just be a couple of weeks up to, a couple of months. It really depends on the seller. Like I've worked with sellers. I'm working with a seller right now that, and I mean it as complimentary that they are OCD, right? So it is the home is always showroom ready. It's always immaculate. The moment a bulb goes out, it's replaced. It does if they see a scuff on the wall or on the corner, it's taken care of or what have you. So someone like that, we could probably get in, have pictures taken within a week or two. But if you're a hoarder, and we're talking 2, maybe even 3 months, because everything I've experienced too, everything that you probably should get rid of, you find some type of connection to it. Oh, but my great grandmother gave me this, and it's special. And we probably spend 2 or 3 weeks debating over what you need to get rid of. Yeah,
You
so it
must
just
have my
depends.
wife as a client at
Oh
some
my
point.
goodness.
I get it. I've got several. We signed one New Year's Eve, and we'll sign a few more this month. We're planning on that last week of February to second week of March to go live. So all of those are about 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks
Mhm.
to and that buffered in some time, for vendors not showing up, weather, all that good stuff. And that's something you guys will have to take into consideration when you're looking at these windows. I mean, these windows of time is give your vendors, space because you never know
Mhm.
when they're going
Yeah.
to get held up on their last job or when we're going to get ice and
Yeah.
they can't show. So that window has to have some extra time and be a little flexible.
Right.
We
Right.
typically we'll tell people 3 weeks. If the house is in pretty much normal condition and we're not hoarding, it's just typical. We like to give ourselves 3 weeks, but we do inside of that 3 weeks, we're probably going to bring in an inspector to do a pre-marketing inspection on it. We're going to bring in a staging consultant to be able to go through and walk the house. And then based off of the staging consultant and the pre-marketing inspection, we're going to need about that other week for them to work on the things that need to be taken care of. And then we'll get media done with it. And so usually about 3 weeks. And that gives us enough time so that we're not rushing and we're able to kind of watch the market and get a feel for the rhythm of what's going on in that area at the same time. So that when we hit the market, we're hitting it right.
I do like the idea of that pre-listing inspection so you know what to expect. You're not getting
Mhm.
caught off guard, and it may be some simple fixes that you can make that will make that negotiation period go a lot smoother, or you may not even have a negotiation period if you're able to do those. And I'm assuming that's why you're doing that pre-inspection.
Yeah, well, and I'll talk about that here in just a bit, but yeah, it is a negotiating tool for us. Like we'll use that pre-marketing inspection a lot of times because we'll use an independent third-party inspector and we'll use that to go ahead and try to expedite the due diligence process. Or if we're in multiple offers and people are trying to figure out what they want to offer, but they're not sure what's going on behind the scenes and they don't want to extend themselves, having that pre-marketing home inspection allows us, when we get to multiple, to go, we need your highest and best. And oh, by the way, here's the pre-marketing inspection with it. Go ahead and let us know what you want us to repair now based on what's on this inspection. And so when we do, I think we just went off course, but I'll tell you the rest of it. When we do that, what happens is that we now, instead of waiting until there's only one other game in town to negotiate all these repairs, we make the buyers compete against each other in what they're doing on their repairs that they want, while they know they're still competing, which typically the way that it happens, somebody's going to bug out. If we got three of them, one of them is bugging out, one of them is going to hold where they are, and the other one's going to come in usually 5 to 10,000 over top. And then they're going to say, and we'll take it with no repairs.
Got it. So now that we've talked about all those things that we do to get the house ready to prep, guys, what are some of those non-negotiable things that you come across that you just have to say, this is what we have to do?
So obviously we've talked about it earlier, but the decluttering, right? We'll tell our clients all the time, we're not selling your home. We're going to sell a house. And so and part of this decluttering is also part of depersonalizing it. What you don't want to happen is you don't want a buyer to come in and see your family in it. You want them to be able to come in and see their family in it. And I was telling one of our clients this, and we were going through the house, and I said, okay, so we need to get the pictures off the wall. We need to kind of get rid of half of what's in this room right here. And she looked at me, she said, Donald, you tell me I need to de-blackify my house.
Okay.
And I paused for a minute. I said, that's exactly what I'm telling you to do. You quantify your house so that it is neutral. And then I went into the whole conversation. I said, we live in the 2021, but it doesn't change the fact that there's still people that come in with biases. And our job is to try to remove the biases. And so the best way for us to remove a bias is for it not to be known. And it doesn't matter if you're white, black, Mexican, Hispanic, whether or not you're a New England Patriot fan. Well, it does matter if you're a New England Patriot fan. But for the most
I
part,
don't
it
know.
really
They
just
have a
doesn't
Tar Heel
matter.
quarterback, so
Want to get to neutral, right? So we want to remove all bias. We want to remove anything that would take away from them being able to see themselves in the house.
Agree.
And that starts with the decluttering of it. You're
Yep.
selling a house, not a home. The second one is that pre-marketing inspection. And part of our job is not just to make them as much money as possible when they sell their house, but it's to save them as much money as possible as well. And so one of the things that we'll do when we go in is we'll tell them we prefer that you do a pre-marketing inspection. It's the only thing we're going to ask you to pay out of your pocket on the front side of it. But we would much rather know what we're dealing with before we get to contract than to find out after contract. And that's going to allow the seller to then budget. And I'll tell them, I said, I need you to give me a budget on repairs before we go through this. And then we're going to base what we do to get the house ready based on what's on that pre-marketing inspection. And of course, we're going to look at things that are structural, systems, sanitary, and safety. We're going to look at those things first. And if we have enough money left over in our repair budget, now we'll start dealing with some cosmetic things. But it's those structural things, those material facts that are going to show up inside of that home inspection that are going to derail us when we get under contract. And it's going to cost us a lot more money then. So let's go ahead and get that out of the way so you know what you're dealing with and we know what to expect when that day comes. And then the third one goes back to that first impression, right? You got 7 minutes. So we want to make sure that the front part of the house is right, that when you walk into the house, it feels open, it feels bright, it feels like they're ready to be able to, they could see themselves inside of it. And we've taken care of smells. We've gotten rid of everything that could possibly be a distraction so that when they get in the threshold, we now have the ability for them to see the house for the house and not because of their objections. So those are the three things. I think we're going to declutter the house. We're going to go ahead and get on that home inspection ahead of time so that we know what repairs we need to make, what things are going to be coming at us. And then we're going to really pay attention to that first 7 minutes to make a good first impression.
Donald, two of those things you mentioned are things that are so important, but the average seller doesn't realize because they've been in that house so long is the amount of light coming in. That's huge, especially these days. Most of my buyers want as much light as they can have coming in. So we set it for pictures and for showings. get those blinds open those windows, and then smells. You would not believe when a person walks into a house and they get a smell, and it's usually the wife. Once that smell is there, that house drops down the list. So that's something we really have to take a look
especially
at. I'm glad you said that.
especially that of a smoker,
Yeah.
right? And
Smokers,
then
spices, and pets.
and pets, and especially if it gets into the carpet or gets into the foam up underneath the carpet. Sometimes it can even get in into the walls,
Yep.
right?
Especially with
And
cats.
so next thing you know, you have to go through that process of the proper, it's not paint, but something that you put on and then you paint over or what have you to
Kills.
block it out. Yeah, kills. Getting rid of draperies. Sometimes it has a
Holds the
smell in
smell.
it.
Sulfur. Sulfurs
So I
hold
mean,
smell. A lot
yeah,
of things.
you hit on a really big point. I want to piggyback off of both you, Donald, and Terrence on that pre-inspection report, which it's not always in it. It depends on the inspector, but especially when we're talking about preparation and how much time or what have you, what's really becoming a non-negotiable is that roof, right? Because insurance companies now they're very fickle. I won't call out names of the insurance companies, but I know there's one that if it's even 8 years old, that could cause an issue with the buyer getting reasonable insurance coverage, right? So we really need to keep that in mind when it comes to budgeting the repairs and whether or not the seller's insurance company is willing to go on and take care of it, or at least we find out, hey, if we need to go this route, because I've actually gone that route, whereas we finally had to replace the roof. This was about 4 months ago. We were forced to just replace the roof. Otherwise, the buyer could not get insured. So that's really big in that pre-inspection.
Yep. Now we talked about those non-negotiables. What's the marketing, if we can talk on that real quick, that you guys see that actually makes a difference? Yeah. Yeah.
Pricing it correctly,
Yeah.
right? That because we can do all the marketing, have the nicest pictures, have this marketing strategy, that marketing strategy, or what have you. But if it's not priced right, it almost doesn't matter. And like Donald said, it's the fact that it's in a cul-de-sac or whatever doesn't matter. It's the home priced correctly. Just like here in Charlotte, we're finding that basically homes are selling at about 95.8% of list price. So I'm starting to tell my sellers, hey, whatever we think the price is, you tell me what you want. I give you my professional advice on it. And then we still go on and price the home 5% less than what we really want to list it for. Because we already see that they're selling at 95%, 95.8% of list to begin with. So let's just go on and try to get there now, right? And then if it's going to do more because of marketing and all of that and the things that we've done to update it or what have you, all the things that we've talked about, then it'll do more. But otherwise, it has to be priced right.
One of the marketing strategies we're looking at is along with the pricing is if we haven't gotten showings in 10 days, lower the price. If we've gotten 10 showings and no offer, lower the price. So that's one of the marketing things we're looking at going forward. How about you, Donald?
I think when you look at lowering the prices of it, it comes back down to making sure that we're pricing it right to begin with, right? And making sure we understand bottom lines. And I'll tell our clients this all the time is that I get this is where we want to market the house at, but where is your bottom line at? And the moment that I know where the actual bottom line is, now I know how to negotiate the deals. I know where I need to push off of. I know where I can push out a little bit more at. And so we really push the idea from a marketing stand. It's not marketing outwardly, but it's having an understanding of where we need to land and then how we're going to approach each individual agent and buyer as they come in. Now, as far as strategies putting a house, every market's different, right? But for our market, what we have discovered is that we like to take properties to the market on Thursday evening, late Thursday evening. And the reason we do it on late Thursday evening is because usually those top agents are still in their offices at 5:30, 6 o'clock. Everybody else has gone home. And so we want to make sure that the first people to get to see this are those top agents that are still sitting in that office so that they've already got it on their list for first thing Friday morning.
Donald, I do
So
one even
we
better. I tell my buyers to make themselves available Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, because I know those top agents are putting their houses on the market. And there's a chance we can get in that Thursday, 5, 6 o'clock and be the first one, if it's that house, to get that offer in. So I love that you say that.
Yeah,
Yep.
very
And
much.
then we'll tell our buyers and say, we're hoping for a good showing. We're praying for a really good turnout as we take it to the market. But truth is, we're still fickle and we're not quite sure how it's going to play. But we don't want to miss an opportunity. So it's a great opportunity that first weekend, and goes into that 3 weeks of giving them to plan
Mhm.
ahead. For them to go ahead and take a mini vacation. Take a mini vacation that first weekend. Let us run the house. Let us have it so we can kind of free it up. We've gone back and forth over open houses on opening weekend, and there's been times that it's been really, really good, and then there's been times that it hasn't been good. But we tell our sellers we don't never expect to sell a house in an open house, right? It's more there. We use the open house, and somebody that loves open houses are going to cringe at me when I say this, but we'll use that open house sitting there that first weekend pretty much to create a false sense of urgency because buyers, this I guess the buyers do need to hear this, right? Buyers will see that open house and immediately think, oh my gosh, there's going to be 30 people in here. Somebody's going to buy it before we get a chance. And it kind of expedites their decision making process to go ahead and put that offer in. Typically, what happen is that the agent will call, well, what is it going to take for us to get the house off, to cancel the open house and get it off the market before we get into the weekend? And that's the conversation. So we use the open house for that specific purpose, but we don't necessarily use it to sell the house. I don't think in the 200 some transactions we've ever sold one of our listings at the open house. Now we've
Mhm.
procured buyers and we've sold them other houses, but we haven't used it. It hasn't created a purchaser for our house doing it, but it does create a false sense of urgency for them.
In 9
Yeah.
years, I can track that I've had 6 houses sell directly from an open house, and the thing you said about the use I like for open house, we normally don't do them that first weekend. We do them that second weekend because it being listed as an open house brings that house to the top of a lot of search lists.
That's
So
right.
we
Mhm.
use it strategically that way, and then we may do it every other week or every 3rd week just to bring it back up. We might also say change some pictures to bring it back up in that rotation as well.
Very
Professional
good.
photography. I also recommend with professional photography, either drone or sometimes if it's extra 200 and some dollars for drone, you might not need the whole yard. So I've got some photographers that'll do what's called a pole shot where they got a pole that's like 20 feet tall and it gets a good picture of that yard. So someone looking at it, it's great for them to be able to see that yard in the picture, especially if it's a nice yard. The other thing that irritates me to no end when I'm looking at properties is agents not putting a floor plan in. I'm one, I truly believe in putting that floor plan in so people can see the
Yeah.
house and see how
Yeah.
it lays out. And the new builders that don't put floor plans in, I do not understand why they don't do it.
Well, you know why it is.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. We all know why it is. Usually that comes into play when you have agents that are part-time agents or they're not at the top of their game and they're trying to take pictures with their cell phone
Yep.
and they're trying to do it quick and to pay somebody another $100 to come in and do your floor plan for you and it's coming out of the agent's pocket. I think that goes back into the value, right?
It is.
When they start interviewing an agent, what's included? What are you bringing to the table? And what does that look like as far as services that go along with it?
Yeah. And Donald, that's
Mhm.
something you mentioned, that staging consult. That's something we offer as well that a lot of agents don't offer to help out. So as you're a seller interviewing agents, ask these questions. Do you have professional photography? Do you have a staging consult? What are you bringing to the table? That really
Mhm.
helps.
Mhm.
So we can go ahead and wrap this up a little bit. Who is the person that really should be listing in the next 60 to 90 days? Because not everybody should be listing right now. That's a question you don't get very often.
I
I Go ahead. No, I'm just and to lead into that a little bit. It's that person that hadn't gone, that hadn't planned and that doesn't know where they're gonna go. it might not be the best time for them to sell. And some people specifically that may have a pool and the selling point of their house truly is the exterior, the yard, they may want to wait till stuff starts to green and looks a little better so that they get the best eyes on their property. I wanted to say that.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely.
we're really needs based right now in our market, right? I tell people all the time, I said we need to hold on, not yet, unless you need to move. We need to hold that for at least another season. So it's the people that are in needs, the people that need to make a decision that they need to move. And I would say and throw into that that if you have children that are in school, this is
Yeah.
Mm.
your window because in
Yeah.
90 days, you're getting to the end of the school year. It's going to take any transaction a minimum of 30 days. It's going to put you at the beginning of the summer. And that allows you to go ahead and take that time with the kids out of school to be able to home search and get yourself situated into your new home.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And Donald, you stole my thunder right from up under me because that's exactly what I was going to say. If you are looking at schools, you know that maybe that promotion is coming up, job change, whatever the case, and you have children, then the schools are going to be important. And so now's that time to to go on and get things moving because time flies when we're having fun. And when spring break hits and going to the beach and family trips and now we're into the summer, all that kind of stuff, that it takes a lot of the time away that you think that you have. So now it's the time to start thinking about the next school year.
Well, I hope this helped all of you that are thinking about selling your house in 2026. Remember, if you have any questions, no matter where you are in the state or really in the country, reach out to one of us. Ask us for our seller's guide. Ask us for our checklist. We'll give you as much information as
Mhm.
we can. Guys,
Yeah.
thank you for joining us today, and we'll see you next month.
All
Y'all have a
right.
good one.
See ya.
Have a great one.